right, good morning, everyone. This meeting is called to order. Mr. Trobman. Mr. Trobman already was expecting me to say that. Has anyone signed up for public comment?
Commissioners, good morning. We have some folks who would like to address you all when we take up this item. So if we want to introduce that.
Is this the only item on the agenda today?
We're posted for other items, but I believe this is the only item that
This
we have
one come
items
up?
to bring to you.
Got it. All right, we'll move to agenda item 3, strategic plan for childcare workforce.
All right. Good morning, Chairman, Commissioner Demerson, and Mr. Sarna. For the record, Reagan Miller with the Child Care and Early Learning Division. House Bill 619, passed during the 87th legislature, directed TWC to prepare a child care workforce strategic plan, and in developing the agency plan to consider input received from the House Bill 619 work group. The plan must be submitted every 3 years to the governor, lieutenant governor, and speaker. You considered this plan at the December 20th commission meeting, and during that meeting received input from several public commenters. In response to the public comments, you asked staff to revisit the draft plan and ensure that we are addressing clearly all of the required elements from House Bill 619. We did review the draft plan and have made several revisions to ensure that we're clear in our recommendations and to ensure that we have covered all of the elements outlined in the legislation. In our revisions, we include additional Texas-specific data rather than looking solely at national data, since Texas data provides more relevant details. You'll see this on page 3 of the report, where we have data on the labor force, on the number of families with children where all parents are working, and in comparisons to the cost of infant care versus the cost of in-state public tuition. We also added in some additional data on the enrollment levels that child care providers currently have as compared to their licensed capacity and desired capacity. And the legislation asked for recommendations for increasing the compensation for and reducing turnover of child care workers. On page 5, you'll see a new section that we've added to provide more background information on the current funding limitations that exist. We note our recognition and support for improvement in child care workers' wages and compensation and reducing turnover, and highlight efforts that TWC has undertaken to assist child care providers. Our recommendations are based upon the current funding structure. This plan lays out the challenges that the industry faces based upon the existing business model and provides a foundation for further policy discussions. We also created a new action item, 1.2.1, on the infant and toddler workforce, which you'll see on page 8. This action item had previously been subsumed within another action item, and since this was a requirement in House Bill 619, we wanted to ensure that we were more clearly addressing this. And on page 16, we also added language to more clearly highlight pay disparities in the child care workforce. I do want to acknowledge the time and energy and dedication of the House Bill 619 work group and thank them for their contributions. And in closing, staff seeks direction on the approval of the Child Care Workforce Strategic Plan for submission to the governor, lieutenant governor, and speaker, and permission to make non-substantive technical edits if needed.
You got any questions for Reagan?
None for Reagan.
Mr. Trobman.
Yes, we have a couple folks here with us and then several on the virtual line. So first, Mr. Kaminsky, if you want to come up, introduce yourself, who you represent, and go ahead.
Good morning. My name is Tim Kaminsky, and I am the director and co-owner of the Gingerbread ECE programs in Fort Bend County. Our family-owned business has been around for 40 years, and we operate 7 locations in the Richmond and Rosenberg area. I also served as a member on the PN3 policy work group that created the original recommendations for the Child Care Strategic Plan. As we're all aware, House Bill 619 tasked TWC with developing a strategic plan that included recommendations to improve the quality of the ECE workforce, and among other things was to include recommendations to improve and sustain the workforce, provide recommendations for increasing compensation and reducing turnover, and finally making recommendations for eliminating pay disparities. Although the first draft and now the second draft of the proposed plan included ways to improve tech peds, ways to provide professional development for staff, ways to improve best practices of the workforce boards, and ways to create a pipeline of future ECE workers, those plans did not and do not, as far as I'm concerned, include recommendations for sustaining the workforce, increasing compensation, and eliminating pay disparities, which in turn would reduce turnover. If those items are in the second draft, it wasn't clear to me in how that was going to be done. These items were specifically required to be included in the Child Care Strategic Plan and were at the top of the list of the requirements provided by the legislature. The original work group developed very specific recommendations on ways to address those issues. However, those recommendations are not being presented to you today in the current document. Regardless of an employee's qualifications as an employer of ECE workers, I cannot increase their compensation without having access to additional revenue sources coming into my program or having access to other financial programs that will help to compensate those employees. You can't have a plan that wants to improve quality without having a plan to create and support quality compensation. Increasing compensation has to be the top priority of this plan if the intent is to sustain the workforce and reduce turnover. This cannot be achieved by funding other programs that seek to create efficiencies in how ECE programs operate. Our work group developed a retention bonus program that addresses that issue. Actually, TWC already has a mechanism in place via the shared work program that could be modified to distribute those bonus payments directly to the employees working in the ECE field. These are the types of concrete recommendations that need to be presented to our legislatures this session. Once this strategic plan is approved, it will not be reviewed again for at least 3 years. The plan needs to include what the legislature asked for, and it needs both long and short-term solutions that will have an immediate impact on sustaining and retaining the current ECE workforce. As the plan is written now, the desired changes will not be realized before the current child care crisis worsens. I encourage you to please go back to our original document and review the staff retention bonus plan and reconsider adding that recommendation to this current document. If clarification is needed on how this could be managed through the TWC shared work program, I'd be happy to provide you with additional information or answer any questions. Thank you.
Ms. Coffin?
Good morning, Chairman Daniels and Commissioner Demerson. Thank you for your continued work on the Child Care Workforce Strategic Plan, and we appreciate you and the entire Child Care and Early Learning's team work on making the revision since the last meeting on December 20th. For the record, my name is Kim Coffin, the Senior Director of Education for Children at Risk. As I said in my testimony on the 20th, the Texas Workforce Commission is the one agency that best understands the breadth and scope of the complex issues that face childcare businesses and employers. The strategic plan lays out the issues that face the childcare industry specifically in that new section on childcare funding limitations, which explains the money that is currently being invested into our childcare center by our federal childcare system by our federal government, and also explains how it falls short by serving the needs of the state, only serving 12% of our children and doesn't adequately support the adequate wages and compensation for the early childhood workforce. The plan even states that there is approximately 60,000 children on the TWC waiting list. The wait list is a result of 3 things: lack of childcare providers with available space, lack of early childhood educators to care for those children, or lack of a high enough reimbursement rates that actually cover the costs to incentivize childcare providers to care for those children. No matter what combination of those issues, they all boil down to the lack of additional funding to subsidize childcare, and that's what's missing from the plan. What is missing from the true recommendations to the Texas legislature to invest additional dollars to subsidize the childcare system, additional dollars to allow childcare businesses to pay their staff a self-sustaining wage, additional dollars to allow more families access to high-quality childcare without having to pay between 15% and 50% of their income on childcare. What is missing is the suggestions to the Texas legislature to continue to explore how we as Texas can support the childcare industry so that it can in fact do its job of supporting all of the Texas economy. Your strategic plan tells us what you as an agency will be doing over the next few years to support the childcare industry. Many of those things you're currently already doing. Many of those things we fully support. Unfortunately, those things are not enough. The childcare industry needs action now. The Texas legislature needs your expertise and recommendations to guide their policy decisions that will better support working families and enhance their efforts. I'm fearful that if I'm fearful that if further action does not happen, our childcare industry will not be here in the next few years, leaving many children without high quality childcare and leaving businesses all over Texas without employees. Thank you for your time.
Okay, for those virtually, I'm going to call your name. If you can unmute yourself, introduce yourself for the record and begin. Melanie Rubin.
Thank you. I'm Melanie Rubin, Director of the North Texas Early Education Alliance. Chairman Daniel, Commissioner Demerson, and Mr. Serna, thank you for this opportunity to speak today, and thank you for taking some time to review the proposed childcare workforce strategic plan. The plan successfully highlights the childcare system's inherent challenges, especially the talent dearth and the inability to hire and retain staff, which has been significantly exacerbated by the pandemic and which is limiting the system's efficacy and sustainability. The plan effectively uses data to illustrate the economic necessity of childcare. The plan effectively articulates that the childcare workforce is underpaid, but that childcare providers don't have the capacity to increase compensation to a living wage. The plan effectively shows that Texas parents are maxed out and cannot afford to pay more. The plan effectively articulates that Texas childcare is in crisis, that Texas childcare providers are only operating at about 2/3 of their desired capacity. The plan effectively shows that these childcare shortages decrease the available openings for parents who need to get back to work. But the plan ineffectively stops there, despite the natural conclusion for wage supplementation and public investment. It is not up to TWC to identify the resources or implement the changes. However, it is up to TWC to recommend that the state do what is needed. We appreciate some of the proposed recommendations, which are thoughtful and will have some impact. However, the plan presented today does not do what HB 619 intended. It simply does not address the market failure of the childcare system and the resulting childcare workforce crisis. It falls short and does not create a sustainable plan with meaningful strategies to support and stabilize the childcare workforce. We are disappointed that TWC is missing this opportunity to use to inform the development of a sustainable childcare system. TWC was given the 619 charge because of your deep understanding, creative problem solving, and comprehensive capabilities in childcare. We hope that you will hear from those who are struggling with the system, the parents who need the childcare system to work, the childcare businesses that need support to stay open, and the employers who need the system to work. We hope that you will acknowledge that the childcare system is in market failure and commit to find ways to more meaningfully address this childcare workforce crisis. We are all standing with you and are happy to do whatever we can to help, but hope we will all work together to meaningfully address the crisis. Thank you.
Cynthia Pearson. Ms. Pearson? Patsy Harnage? Ms. Harnage?
Hello, can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can.
Hi, good morning, commissioners. My name is Patsy Harnage, owner of Bright Beginnings Child Care in Northwest Austin. We are a 4-star facility and we are also an AISD partner pre-K facility. The child care business is in a crisis. There isn't adequate funding to cover costs and families can't afford to pay more. The parents in our facility are struggling to pay their fees every month. I have to report half of my CCS families for non-payment of fees by due dates. Some of these payments are less than $100. I am a humanistic provider that comes from humble beginnings and I feel their struggle. So when I have to report them and watch them struggle to pay me so they can't lose their care, I become overwhelmed with sadness. I fear without some form of intervention, the child care facilities will not be able to remain in business. This will impact the entire economy. People can't go to work if they can't find child care. Currently, I can't enroll more children in my facility because we can't staff classrooms. For example, I had to close an infant room. I get 5 to 10 calls a day from parents seeking infant care. It deeply saddens me to turn these families away when I have the capacity. The overhead cost of operating a high-quality facility is very high. There needs to be an effective strategic plan to have a viable workforce. Thank you.
Thank you. Cassie Camargo?
Let me turn this on. Can you hear me?
We can.
Okay. Good morning, all. My name is Cassandra Camargo, and I am the Director of Education for Christian Preschool Centers in Lubbock, Texas. We have the blessing of being able to serve families in both the South Plains and Panhandle area. I personally work in our schools to train and guide our educators and provide top-level training daily to the ever revolving door of teammates. I want to start by thanking Commissioner Demerson, Chairman Daniel, and Ed Cerna for allowing us the time to be heard in regards to House Bill 619. I also would like to thank Allison and the work group for the time and effort that was put in to make this strategic plan. After reading through the plan, I do see some items that could be of value to many in our area, such as the plan to improve the Texas Infant and Toddler Specialist Network, continued and added support for our team members to be able to further their education, and conducting the cost of quality study rather than just going off the market survey results. I would like to also mention that I do hear and agree with my peers in regards to the wages needing to be increased for the educators in this field. However, I want to point out that it is more than just the wage itself that deters potential educators from pursuing the private education sector. It is the fact that there isn't enough funds to allocate to benefits such as healthcare, dental, vision, life insurance, retirement, paid time off, etc. These are benefits that the public sector are able to provide while still paying $12 an hour. Part of the battle that we are currently facing, for an example, is the fact that we are losing employees to become substitutes for the public school system because they are able to provide state benefits. These team members that leave don't leave because they want to. They want to be with us and take care of our children and train our children up. But without the benefit package and with the lower pay, we can't stand a chance with the inflation being where it is today. Being able to provide benefits in this time is a crucial to retaining employees. After reviewing the plan proposed on December 20th and comparing it with the updated plan, I believe the issue is still not addressed. I ask that this be more thoroughly looked at in regards to either wage support or benefits supports for all providers. Thank you for your time.
Brooks Jones?
Hi, my name is Brooks Jones. I'm with Christian Preschool Centers. We have 12 facilities, and in Lubbock, we support about 14% of the children that are on CCS. One of the things that I would like to point out is information. The strategic plan is important and is something that y'all are going to be going through the next 3 years. Getting that information to providers so that they can see it is a crucial part of that initiative. I'm thankful for the colleagues that spoke up on the plan, but they were all work group members, showing that the lack of transparency to the overall community to understand what's going on. So I'd like that to be easier and more available to the community. Also, I'm with them on the workforce wage change. When coming from y'all's own quotes is there's on page 14, there's $1 difference if we accept CCS or don't accept CCS of pay to our people. They get paid $1 less on average. And to me, that's what needs to be a part of that needs to be addressed is I don't see anywhere in here. So if I accept government subsidy students, I'm going to be paid my teammates $1 less. And again, we do care for quite a bit of them. We don't because we do have private pay, but we'd like to see that rate of pay come up. Something also I would love to see in this is care for our teammates. It is hard to get them quality care. And that is part of, they want to be in our systems, but they can't get into the CCS on the wait list. And so we'd like to see them where we are helping fund them to be able to work in this industry. It's already going to get a SMI. They're going to get qualified, helping them get in there so they can start and love working with the children that they're already with. There's a lot of things that we did find in this plan that we do agree with that will benefit us in the long run, but nothing really in the immediate or to cover the difference. And that's what we're running into, and going from there. So thank you for your time. Appreciate it.
And finally, Lynn Lucas.
Hello, this is Lynn Lucas.
Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you so much for the time today. I was lucky and enough to be a part of this work group and the fabulous team that put so much time and thought and effort into this work. I think the bottom line is to reiterate that there are some very thoughtful, purposeful and impactful action items that are a part of this plan, but fundamentally we're missing the opportunity to be able to also create a funding plan that would help support the implementation of this work. And it would be a shame to have this much work and time and effort and planning toward, and to waste the opportunity to be able to implement something because of a lack of funding to make it practical and sustainable over time. So I don't want to take time reiterating too much what's already been said because it's very duplicative. I think at the end of the day, we can see that if we're going to make a difference in being able to impact the industry, that in order to be able to grow the career and educational pipeline, we have to also make sure that we have the funding capability to make it happen. So I encourage the TWC to also take the opportunity to either add to this plan a clear directive to create a funding plan to be able to sustain this over time. Thank you.
That's the last person. Okay. Cynthia Person was also on there, so she's not available.
Let me see it. She may have just come on. Okay, great. Ms. Pearson.
Good morning. My apologies. Some technical difficulties here this morning. Day in the life in the early childhood field. Cynthia Pearson with Day Nursery of Abilene in West Texas. Thank you again for this opportunity. I don't want to be redundant either, but just a couple of thoughts that I had after reading through some things last night and what I've heard this morning, just the snippets. But in addition to what you've already heard and seen in the child care workforce strategic plan, which I believe was very intentional, those recommendations from the work group of goals and strategies, I just wanted to add a couple of things. Part of what was included in there is other states have made some things happen in the early childhood industry, and Texas can easily follow suit. The cost of quality versus the market survey is critical and has been an important item of discussion of the industry for more than 20 years. And it's time that it becomes a funded priority. That can only help to provide the needed influx of funding, I believe. Wage and benefit supports for the early childhood education industry are needed short-term as well as long-term. Having the early childhood industry as a priority in every workforce area in Texas is critical. And then there's several quotes that come to mind. Dr. Bruce Perry, who has worked 30 years as a clinician, researcher, and teacher, says that the problem in our society is that we invest in people according to shoe size. There isn't enough funding on the front end. Bill Gates says what happens in the first 5 years has so much to do how the next 80 will turn out. And these are paraphrasing their quotes. Dr. Pam Schiller, who's an author of the Frog Street Early Childhood Curriculum, has said, what you teach me birth to 3 is what happens most to me. And what you teach me 3 to 5 is what helps me to survive. All of these speak to the importance of investing early in children, which equates to financial investments in the early childhood industry and its workforce, because workforce in the childcare industry is where the rubber meets the road. And finally, the work of Dr. James Heckman, who's a distinguished professional at the University of Chicago, whose work and expertise is in economics of human development, and that earned him a Nobel laureate in economics. He came up with the Heckman equation, which proves that investing, developing, and sustaining early childhood education equals a gain in more capable, productive, and valuable workforce that pays dividends for generations to come. Thank you again for all the time that you have given to look at this critical industry and for listening to those of us that are advocates and working in the trenches every day. We appreciate it.
Thank you, Commissioners. That brings us to the end of our registered commenters this morning.
Thank you, Mr. Troman. Commissioner Demerson.
Reagan, real quick, Brooks Jones mentioned something about transparency. Did you catch the remarks there?
Yes, sir.
Can you address that?
Yes, we have provided information to the work group members. We've also communicated, we have some stakeholder conference calls where we've communicated information. We've shared information with the boards. And of course, through our commission meeting, posting all of this information online. This plan is posted under the commission meeting action items, and we have a stakeholder webpage on our website that includes detailed information about the House Bill 619 work group, its members, as well as the recommendations.
Okay. All right, thank you. A couple of comments, Chairman. First of all, I wanted to thank you, Reagan and Allison and the team for the work that you guys have done for this particular strategic plan. I know it's been a lot of work, a lot of necessary work and work that I know you guys are excited about doing. So thank you for that work. Secondly, I wanted to thank the work group, Tim, Melanie, Cody, and Kim, and there's another person that I met with. I can't remember just yet right now, but we appreciate you guys coming into the office, speaking with us. I think Melanie Rubin as well. The information that you guys brought, the passion that you guys bring to the table is something that we appreciate big time. We don't take that for granted. So we appreciate your continued support. And lastly, the employers that are in the childcare space, the commissioner representing employers on this side. And so we take very seriously your concerns and in the issues that you're raising. And we see this as an opportunity to do some things. I'm excited about the report that's been presented. I think, Chairman, we took action last week to do a timeout, kind of pull back on some things that allow staff an opportunity to revisit based on the comments that we received. And I appreciate the team going back and actually adding to this report in a way that I think moves us forward. In my conversations with a number of folks in this space, I look at this report as one that presents a foundation for us. Really an opportunity for us to move forward. We're not getting everything that we may want in the report, but as you mentioned, it's very transparent. And so those recommendations by this work group, from what I understand, are out there and publicly available.
Yes,
Those
sir.
that may speak to a number of different things that may not be in this report, they're still out there and available. And I think once this report, if approved, and it's pushed across the street to the lieutenant governors, the governor, lieutenant governor, and the speaker, then we're in a position to build from that point. There will be probably committee meetings with the bill author and a number of other opportunities for this to go forward. It's a revisit in 3 years from now, but that doesn't mean that we can't address it. We have to wait 3 years to do anything. I know we have an opportunity to continue this discussion. And so I am excited that we've continue to raise this issue of childcare. We know how important it is. It was important before the pandemic. We saw how important it was or is during the pandemic, and even afterwards, how important it remains. And so a couple of items, wage support, benefit support, those kind of issues that are primary and foremost of interest to those employers. In addition to some of the other things that are in this House bill, right, and in this report, are things that will be addressed. I think there'll be an opportunity for a lot of discussion to take place as the legislative body convenes. And so I am pleased that we have a report, very pleased that you were able to go back to look at those concerns. And again, it may not have everything that the work group wants, but it's a work group and their recommendations, and the agency's pushing forward a report. And my questions initially, and you've answered those questions, were, are we satisfying the requirements of House Bill 619? And in our staff briefings, it's been affirmative that we are addressing those concerns. And have we included information from the work group and taken their input? And the answers are yes in that regard. Again, getting everything, we're not sure that then, you know, sometimes you do that, sometimes you don't. But I think this allows a real good foundation for those childcare employers, those advocates for childcare to really go forward in a big way. And they'll have the agency's support, as Kim had mentioned, the expertise. A lot of it resides with this agency and with a lot of our local workforce solution teams. And we'll be in a position to push this forward in a big way. And I'm excited to play a role anywhere I can as I advocate for the employers here in the state, and especially those employers in this particular space. Concludes my remarks.
Well, thank you. Let me add my sincere thank you to the work group. The thing about volunteer work groups is the pay is great and the hours are better. And we know that clearly a lot of effort went into that. But I also want to thank, and some of them were work group members, but I want to thank a number of leaders from this early childhood education sector who've come to see me, and not just relative to this report, although we've had some really good, robust, I thought, really insightful discussions about that. But over time, I see these folks regularly. That's how you do advocacy. You have a running conversation about what's going on, what's needed. This report really, House Bill 619, sets up a report that really just initiates the discussion. I would encourage and anticipate that some of the folks that represent this industry who've come to see me will take their same ideas to the legislature when they convene next week. I think that's a great idea. I think the more in-depth conversation that we can have with the legislature, with each other, with employers in the state and with others, we will then get to what is the workable solution. I do want to say one thing that we're talking about. We don't really revisit this until the 3-year mark. My suspicion is we'll revisit this regularly along the 3 years before we do this exercise again. I've found that once you commit something to paper, you've committed yourself to updating that when the situation changes. And based on what I've seen during my 3-year tenure with the Workforce Commission, the situation changes often and rapidly, and we have to be able to react to that. I hope this isn't a document that gets put in a 3-ring binder and gets put on a shelf, and we don't dust that off until 3 years have passed. So a lot of discussions that are going to take place, a lot of decision points that are going to take place. I hope that leaders from the early childhood education industry are over in the Capitol talking about the things that they need. We'll be talking about the things that we can support. This is an important topic. This is an important subject for Texans that probably don't even know it's important to them. And so we'll continue to have those discussions. I appreciate staff, the time that they put in, the revisions that we asked to be made. Commissioner kind of fell over the Christmas holidays, and so staff probably spent some time working that they had probably earmarked for time with family, and I'm appreciative of that. Unfortunately, when you're in the public service business, that happens to you sometimes. And so I really do appreciate the time that they put in and all the things that have happened. A lot of work before us, probably more work ahead of us than the work that went in to this strategic plan. And I'm looking forward to engaging on that, because I think there's some important issues here, and I think we can find some solutions as we move through those. Is there a motion on this particular strategic plan, Commissioner?
Mike, back up here. I move that we approve the 2023 through 2025 Child Care Workforce Strategic Plan as required by House Bill 619 for submission to the Governor, Lieutenant Governor, and the Speaker of the House of Representatives as recommended today by staff.
That's been moved. I second it and that motion passes. All right, thank you. Is there a legislative report today?
No, sir, not today.
Okay. Executive Director's report.
No, sir, I have nothing to report.
All right. Is there any other order of business coming before the commission?
None that I'm aware of.
None? Is there a motion to adjourn?
Move. This is our first meeting in 2023.
It is indeed,
Happy
Commissioner.
2023.
Happy New Year to everyone.
Sharon, I move that we adjourn.
It's been moved to adjourn. I second the motion and we're adjourned. Thank you.